Have you seen a little gal pass by here with a wig and a wag and a long leather bag and all my gold and silver? Have you seen her? Those are lines from an old jack tale I used to tell by the campfire in the Michigan Oakland County parks. Matt Leonard called this a fireside chat, so you're going to hear these lines over and over again every time I take a particular turn in my circuitous path in puppetry over the last 60 years or so. Actually, it started before that. I was born in 1936, and there was a teddy bear in my crib. And that teddy bear was to become not only my constant companion, but my alter ego as well. I was a very shy child, and so I would go behind the door to talk, and I would take my teddy bear, and I'd put him out, and he would do my talking for me. When my sister heard that I was getting into puppetry, she said, "Well, Marilyn, I see that you're still going behind the door to talk." And she was right. The teddy bear's name is Babu, and his character was so well developed by the time I was 7 years old that when I contracted polio, I used his voice at night in the ward when it was dark and when the children around me might be whimpering. It was pretty scary. But he would talk to them and tell them little stories and even sing some songs. It was a pretty powerful thing for a kid to do. I wasn't even thinking about puppets. In fact, I'd never even seen a puppet show until we got our new black and white TV in the 40s, and there was Kukla, Fran, and Ollie. I tell you, I was totally charmed by the way Fran Allison would look at Bert Tillstrom's repertoire of characters. She would look into their button eyes and believe. And of course, his characters were just great. If you're not familiar with Kukla, Fran, and Ollie, check them out. Just Google them. Okay, this is the first puppet I ever made, my little grandmother puppet. I made her over an eggshell. She's just paper mache, and she's so little. My hands were littler then. So, have you seen a little gal pass by here with a wig and a wag and a long leather bag and all my gold and silver? Have you seen her? At age 14, I began to study vocal music, having inherited a lyric soprano voice from my paternal grandmother. I would sing in all the minstrels at Farmington High School. I even had a solo in the all-state chorus in my senior year. Kids would see me coming down the hall. They'd say, "Here comes the voice." That was kind of fun. Then from Farmington High, I went to a very exclusive girls' school in Washington, D.C., Trinity College, which unfortunately had a rather inept music department. So, my second year of school, I went off campus to study my vocal music, which did not bode well. The instructor was from the Peabody Institute, and one would have thought that she would have been better. But I had had really good training at the Hart School of Music, so I knew the difference. Anyway, I transferred to Marygrove College in Detroit, and everything was fine there. Graduated with a degree in English and music. So, have you seen a little gal pass by here with a wig and a wag and a long leather bag and all my gold and silver? Have you seen her? Well, from Marygrove College, I went to teach auditorium at the Burt School in Detroit. What's auditorium, you want to know? Well, the children were on what they call the platoon system, which meant that half the day they were in homeroom and the other half they went around to different special classes. So art, music, gym, auditorium. And As the auditorium teacher, I had to be conversant with whatever it was that the children were learning at different stages from grades 2 through 6. And I had to take that subject matter and create projects that involved dramatic media. I had to work with teachers too. So for instance, if I wanted to do a puppetry project, the script would be written in the homeroom, the puppets would be made in the art room, and then of course all the rehearsing went on in the auditorium, and we would give a show for one of the younger grades later on too. So when I saw a sign on the bulletin board in the office at the Burt School that said that puppetry classes were going to be taught at the Detroit Institute of Arts, well, I jumped at the chance. And I was lucky enough to study under Gil Oden there, and finally hand puppetry with Letty Connell. Nobody better. She was wonderful. I was also working on my master's degree at Wayne State University, studying the humanities, and in particular, studying folklore. So I would take little folk songs or folk stories, and I'd make little puppet shows. I'm sure they were terrible because I knew so little at the time, but they never lacked enthusiasm. And of course, here comes another turn in the road. So, have you seen a little gal pass by here? Wigging a wag, jigging a jag, long leather bag, all my gold and silver. Have you seen her? Yeah, I joined the Detroit Puppeteers Guild. And first off, I met their newly elected vice president in charge of programming, John Miller. John and I became friends right away. He was on his way to amassing one of the largest, actually one of the 3 largest, private puppet collections in the United States. He would drive to a puppetry festival with wine and appetizers stuffed into the trunk of his car. And then he would give legendary parties in his room, to which, by the way, Bert Tillstrom would go, among other puppeteers. And puppeteers would bring him their retired shows. Sometimes he would buy them, sometimes they just would give them to him because they knew that he was exhibiting. And this was a good way to show off their work. Sometimes somebody would even make a special puppet that was representative of their work and give it to him. So on the way home, well, John's car would be filled with puppets, obviously. No more wine, no more appetizers, just puppets. But that's what he wanted. Meanwhile, have you seen a little gal pass by here with a wig and a wag and a long leather bag and all my gold and silver? Have you seen her? So I married Eugene O'Connor. I left teaching. I continued working on my master's degree. I was making puppets. I was building shows. I was performing, all this in and around having children. And it really was a great time for me because I loved the fact that puppetry combined so many different things that I like to do. I like to write, I like to sing, I like to sculpt, there were just so many, knitting, sewing, whatever. Never mind bringing a puppet to life, that was the best. And of course, changing voices, that was fun too. I was still studying vocal music. So one night, my husband and I went to a coffee house in Detroit where a local folk singer was performing. Her name is Rowena. And Ro picked my voice out of a sing-along in the crowd, and we started talking about working together. I had just been hired by the city of Detroit to do a series of shows in the Detroit Public Schools for the Great Cities Cultural Enrichment Project. So away we went, Kukla, Fran, and Ollie style, Rowena and the Marlin Puppets. Ro would sit out in front of the stage and she would play either a guitar or auto harp or banjo. And then my puppets would sing with her and sometimes would enact whatever it was she was singing, sometimes both at the same time. Now, one of my main characters was a little Caucasian boy named Henry. So we would go out and perform and look into the audience. We didn't see any white faces out there, mostly black. So we decided it would be a good idea to create a black little Henry. So I did. And when I would get on the phone and call the principals to book the shows, I gave them the option, white or black. And quite often they chose the black. And it went over quite well. I also did a call and response show with a black teenager. That was good. And then one day, another puppeteer from the Guild, Russell Gordonier, joined Rowena and me. And we went into rehearsal. We had a great time rehearsing because we were doing coffee house shows for adults. And now we were called Rowena and the Rustlin Puppets. It was great. So his puppets were so much nicer than mine. And he was a good puppeteer too. So that was fun. But you know what I really wanted to do? I really wanted to get into television. So when a local show, Cousin Cyrus, came along, I just jumped at the chance. It was really, it was a glorified ad for Farmer Jack supermarkets, but I didn't care. I cut my TV teeth with a cute little puppet named Tina Tomato. Now, have you seen a little gal pass by here with a zig and a zag and a long leather bag, all my gold and silver? Have you seen her? Yeah, one day I was approached by a professional magician who told me that he was putting together a children's entertainment company called Mr. Tricks Enterprises. And this was to do not only live shows with puppets and clowns and magicians, however, he wanted to do television production. Well, I'm your girl, I had to do it. So for the next 4 years or so, I worked at Mr. Tricks Enterprises. The big picture was this. We were going to produce Bible stories, classic Bible stories for children, using newly available VCR equipment, cameras. I mean, it wasn't available to the public prior to this time. So all of a sudden, all this new stuff was coming out, and we were going to use it and sell these tapes. I was booking the live shows so that we could make money, so that we could buy the equipment. I was performing. I was making puppets. I was directing anything that had to do with the puppets. I spent an awful lot of time for no money to speak of in front of that camera, in front of those microphones. But the problem was this. That equipment, you'd buy a really nice piece of equipment 1 week, and then, what do you know, 2 weeks later, there'd be something else that was even better. And of course, we had to have the even better thing. And that just kept going. And it kept going. And I did not see an end to that. So one day, I just walked myself out of there and I never went back. But I took away 2 really good things from Mr. Tricks Enterprises. The first was a concept of the neck tube for the hand puppet that would take 2 fingers, so that if you twisted your finger like this, the puppet could do a quick take to the camera. So later on, I built this little mouse. But you can see how narrow it is this way and wide it is this way to accommodate the 2 fingers. Also, you can see that it is not glued to the costume. It is connected down inside the body of the costume so that it can move easily. So there you go. There's my little mouse. The other thing I took away from Mr. Tricks Enterprises was the fact that I had spent so much time in front of the cameras, learning how to use a monitor, learning how to use microphones. That prepared me for my next show, the Hot Fudge Show. So, have you seen a little gal pass by here with a wig and a wag and a jig and a jag and a long leather bag and all my gold and silver? Have you seen her? What a fun job the Hot Fudge Show was. It was created at ABC to help children develop healthy emotions. It was syndicated in all of the 7 ABC affiliates across the country, and it received a Children's Television Award from Peggy Sharon in 1976. There were live actors as well as puppeteers. The puppets were built by Bob Elnicki, and I was one of 3 puppeteers. I articulated 4 characters: Mona, Glenn Denver, Stacy, and JJ. Just had the best. I also did some costuming, and I was pre-production assistant, so I gathered the props that we needed to tape the shows. It was fun, and it was lucrative, and it was so different from where I'd come. But anyway, it was great. So I'd like you to see a couple of clips from the Hot Fudge Show. The first one is with Mona, and the second one with Glenn Denver and Harry Unreasonable.
It's a Hot Fudge Show coming on. It's a Hot Fudge Show coming on. We got a lot of new ideas to lay on you. You're gonna wanna get involved in the Hot Fudge too. Ain't that feeling? Ain't that feeling? Ain't that feeling now?
Okay, Seymour, I think you've thought about it long enough now. Can you name Mona's feeling?
Well, this is a wild guess, Professor, but Mona sounds like she wants the same thing adults have. But she's really kind of jealous sounding, so that's my guess. The feeling is jealous.
Jealous, huh? All right, we'll see if you're right. Okay, boys, roll it.
I want to do the things adults do. It's just not fair. Makes me feel so jealous.
Jealous! Piggy's jealous!
Emotion Records proudly presents Family Feelings. Yes, all the feelings from families living and working together, like the smash hit Jealous at Dinner. It's not fair, it's not fair. It's got more spaghetti than me. I'm jealous, yeah. It's not fair. It's got more spaghetti than me. I'm jealous, yeah. I'm jealous, yeah. Plus, you get the colossal hit, the one everyone sings, Backseat Anger. Hey, Mom, she's on my side of the backseat, and she's making me angry, she's making me angry, Mom, hey, Mom. Yes, Family Feelings, all on one long plain album from Emotion Records.
It's so fun spending your time sharing and caring, yeah, that's a good sign.
A real good sign. Hooray, hooray for friendship. Hooray, hooray for friends. I say hooray for friendship. Hooray, hooray for...
We interrupt Hot Fudge to bring you this unreasonable report. Here's Harry Unreasonable.
Hi, what are you guys doing with that camera in here? Be careful, that pig over there.
Harry Unreasonable here, reporting with more information on my feeling report. Right now, we'll be talking with Glenn Denver to find out why he thinks feelings are not worth talking about.
If they're not worth talking about, why do you want to talk about them?
Don't try to be funny. Just tell us why feelings aren't worth talking about.
Suppose I think feelings are worth talking about.
Then there's something wrong with the way you think. Just agree with me.
No.
Why not?
Because I don't agree with you. And if I say I agree that I don't, then it'll show I don't say what I think.
I see. Just a second. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, Glenn Denver is unable to be with us today to talk about how stupid feelings really are.
Hey, wait, I'm here.
I said you are unable to be with us today.
Okay.
But
Rotten
if
out.
Glenn Denver was able to be here, I'm sure that he'd say feelings are stupid and you should ignore them.
No, he wouldn't. No, he'd say it's important to understand your feelings because they help you understand yourself.
You have no authority to speak. I said that...
Feelings are natural, and everybody should learn about them.
Quiet,
Yeah.
I say! Quiet!
We now return you to our regular programming.
So, during the hot fudge time, I divorced my husband of 19 years, and I moved to another part of town with my teenagers. And I moved in right across the street from a professional mime. What are the chances of that? But anyway, her name was Pat Judd. And Pat introduced me to Tony Montanaro and his Celebration Barn in South Paris, Maine, where we took workshops in mime and storytelling. And Pat and I worked together for a few years, calling ourselves the Story Doers. And also I trained her as a television puppeteer because we did a pilot called On the Grow at ABC as well. So here's part of the first part of On the Grow. It's called Best Friends.
On the grow, we're growing up. On the grow, we're growing up. On the grow, we're doing things we've never done before. On the grow, we're making changes. On the grow, we're rearranging.
Okay, it's your turn. A secret you would only tell your best friend. Come on. Okay. It's about the guy.
Yeah.
I'd like to have a date with for the school play next week.
Oh, yeah? Who?
Promise you won't tell.
Kim, I'm your best friend.
Okay. He is the foxiest, cutest male human on earth.
Yeah.
The captain of the football team. Wally. You like Wally? I adore him. Oh, jeez. Oh, but don't tell him. I don't want him to get the wrong idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I just know he'll ask.
So Pat and I performed together in malls and in theaters. Once we even opened for Victor Borga. That was fun. And I went out into the malls by myself with Mona too. I did kids' fashion shows. I did storytelling. I did, even a Mona look-alike contest. That was at Wonderland Mall. And I also booked my son, Tom O'Connor, as a juggler there. And then one year, Russell Gordonier was hired to build a great big total body rabbit puppet. It was totally orange. It was just, and so he was called Hopscotch the Wonder Bunny. That was fun. So one day, my old friend John Miller called, invited me out to dinner. His mother had died exactly to the day, 6 months prior to that time. And he had taken care of both of his parents until they died. And he'd never married. So, we've seen a little gal pass by here with a wig and a wag and a long leather bag and all my gold and silver. Have you seen her? In 1984, John Miller and I were married. Now I had a caring husband. I didn't have to worry about money because he was working full-time as an art teacher in Detroit. I could produce shows, I could perform, I could share my storytelling, whatever I wanted to do, I could do. And John and I together produced a lot of exhibits in the Midwest area. And Also, in order to do that, we listed all of the puppets in his collection, which he'd never done prior to that time. And he was also appraising other people's puppets as well. And so another thing, John was Danish American. He was first generation Danish American. So he was very much a part of the Scandinavian community. And one day we went to a Scandinavian event and he saw the cutest little black girl there who'd been adopted by a Norwegian couple. She was street smart. She wore her hair in a tight cap, sort of like this. Always had a bow here. Saw her several times, actually. And her name? Her name was Tiffany. I'm telling you, folks, puppets, characters are out there. All you have to do is look at them really well and copy. That came along a little bit later. Anyway, John's and my summers were spent teaching puppetry at Northern High School for the Gifted and Talented program. And one year, some students came from Africa. And so using an African folktale, we did a project that was not only puppet-based, but mask as well. So on the Saturdays after Thanksgiving, you could see John and me for several years at the Detroit Renaissance Center, producing and directing a children's Renaissance Christmas. Every year, we hired a puppeteer to come in and perform on stage. And then we also hired other people to roam and play music or sing or dance or do mime, whatever. We finally hired 55 performers. So that was good. That was a good thing to do. And so one of the things that we would do would be to create special characters. One character was a really wonderful fairy. And another was a unicorn man. And John made this unicorn mask, paper mache. And I loved the unicorn man. I always put a dancer in the unicorn man. Okay, so back to Pat Judd. One day, Pat told me she wanted to go on sabbatical. I thought, okay. So actually, she did me a big favor because she forced me to go forward on my own. So, have you seen a little gal pass by here with a zig and a zag and a long leather bag and all my gold and silver? Have you seen her? Okay. It was 1988. I was 52 years old, and I was on my own professionally, really, for the first time. So I sat down and enumerated my strengths. I thought, okay, your voice, always. Your voice, studies in folklore, storytelling, and puppetry. And my company, the Puppet Connection, was born. Russ Gordonier created this wonderful puppet of Tiffany based on that child that we'd seen. And he also created a two-faced changeling puppet for my first show, which was called Midnight Tales of Enchantment. We called it that because in every one of the 4 or 5 stories, something magical happened at midnight. I even did an audio cassette of midnight stories. And my daughter had graduated from the Rhode Island School of Design by then. So she did all my artwork for me. She did my brochure, my letterhead. She did whatever I needed. It was great. Now, I had been working with Mona in a very similar way than working with Tiffany, but this time I got very specific, and I called it dual focus performing because I knew I had to be keeping two characters alive, at least two characters alive, all the time on stage. And also throwing focus back and forth. So over the next few years, with Johnny's help making the masks, and also with further studying with Tony Montanaro in storytelling, I created 7 thematic shows wherein there were 4 to 5 stories, and I would either tell a story to a puppet, tell a story with a puppet, tell a story with puppets and masks, or tell a story as if it happened to me, wherein there was some kind of a fantasy character. So, by the way, Tony Montanaro was really a big influence here. I want to show you some bits from Echoes on the East Wind.
Tiffany?
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you a story from China.
Oh boy, China. What is it?
The story is called Chen Ping and His Magic Axe.
Oh, I like magic.
I know you do. Once upon a time, there was a poor little boy named Chen Ping.
Chen Ping.
And he worked for a very rich and a very wicked master whose name was Wing Fat.
Was he fat?
Very fat. Now, Chen Ping had to do all the chores for Wing Fat. He had to carry water, he had to cut the firewood, he had to mill the rice, and he had to take care of all Wing Fat's animals.
All of them?
Well, that's okay because he loved animals.
Oh, good.
But it didn't matter how hard Chen Ping worked or what he did. Wing Fat was never satisfied. In fact, he scolded Chen Ping quite a bit, and sometimes he even beat him.
Whoa.
Day after day, year after year, men take from the sea whatever they can get. Perhaps if I gave something back. What have I to give? And then he remembered. He remembered the one treasure that he had in the world. He reached into his pocket and he pulled it out, and there it was. A tiny clamshell that he'd found on the beach one day. It was his little lucky shell. He loved to run his fingers over the surfaces. One side was as rough and wrinkled as the face of an old man. And the other side, well, that was as smooth and pink as the inside of a maiden's ear. He caressed it one more time, and then over the side of the boat it went. Well, it skipped a couple of times and then sank. Aho sat back in his boat and pulled his straw hat over his face and went to sleep. And when he woke, the sun was on the horizon. He began to pull in his nets, and at first they seemed just as empty as ever. But then he went to make one last tug, and the nets refused to leave the bottom of the ocean. So Aho raised his feet on the sides of the boat and pulled until his muscles stood out like banyan roots, and finally, over into the bottom of the boat came his prize. It was a giant clam. There once lived a kind old man. Who had a very wicked and greedy wife. They lived alone, except for a little pet sparrow, which the old man kept in a cage in the kitchen. The door of the cage was always open.
What are you looking for? My starch! My starch! I made it and I left it right here in this bowl, and now every bit of it is gone. Oh, I didn't know it was your starch, for it was in the bowl in which I usually get my dinner. I thought it was for me, and I ate it all up. You wicked sparrow! I will punish you for eating up all my lovely starch.
Oh, Sparrow! Oh, my poor Sparrow! The old man cried as bitterly as if he'd lost his own son. And early the next morning, he rose bright and early to go look for him. He looked into the bamboo thicket, but all he heard there were the lonely crickets. He looked up into the bright blue sky, but he saw only the clouds drifting by.
Oh, little sparrow, where are you? Sparrow, oh, my wife, she did such a wicked and unkind thing to you. I am so glad to see that you are safe and well. Oh, master, do you not know? Nothing can harm me. He even gave me a fine present. A present? Quickly, let me see it. You see, he had 2 boxes, one which was small and light, and the other which was large and heavy. I chose the smaller, lighter box. Let me see. Let me see. Just give me a present to take home with me. That will do. Which will you have? Oh, I am younger and stronger than the old man. Give me the heavy box. That will do just fine. Think of all the gold and jewels that must be inside. Perhaps if I take just a little peek.
Perhaps this has taught you a good lesson.
Indeed, he has, old man. I shall never be unkind or greedy again.
After that, the old woman truly kept her word, and before long, she became almost as kind and good as the kind old man. And that is the end of the story of the tongue-cut sparrow.
I did a lot of performing in Michigan. My mime studies made me aware of where the puppet was looking, how it was moving all the time, and how it was breathing. You know, that's important, the breath. I not only booked myself using techniques that I'd learned at Mr. Tricks Enterprises, but Michigan Touring Arts booked me as well. And Russ and I made puppets for other puppetry projects in Detroit. So here's a little bit of PR that Channel 7 put together for us.
It's a hot fudge show coming on. It's a hot fudge show.
For centuries, both young and old have been fascinated by puppets, from Kermit and his friends to the out-of-this-world creatures in The Dark Crystal. Here in Detroit, there are 2 very talented artists and puppeteers who formed the Puppet Connection. Marilyn O'Connor, who operated and was the voice of Mona on the nationally syndicated Hot Fudge Show, and Russ Gordon-Air, a local puppeteer for over 20 years, and creator of the Super Scoop Show.
I like to be able to say things that a lady cannot say. I have a great sense of satisfaction when I can make a puppet look like it's breathing. When you can get a puppet, whether it's speaking or whatever, to look like it really has a life of its own, then you're a puppeteer.
I like to create characters. It's just another form of creativity, whether you're painting or sculpting, just that mine happen to be alive.
Puppet making is a full-time job for Marilyn, while Russ juggles his work around his daytime job as an automotive pattern maker for GM.
What are the basic types of puppets that you make?
This is a hand and mouth puppet. where you're actually manipulating the head with your hand. This is the most popular of your puppets that you do anything with TV work. String puppets are great for theater work, but they don't project on TV. There's more personality to these. They can move, do anything they want with the face. Right?
But before one of their puppets ever sees the bright lights, they must be created through hours of painstaking work.
After I make a drawing, this is a clay sketch where I figure out the contours. It's rough, it isn't complete, it's not going to be complete. And then I draw a pattern on a big block of, this is Cerofoam, and then I snip it down with scissors. It's simple to work with, you just carve everything off until you've got a basic shape. You smooth it off until you finish it off, and then they're hollowed out so you can get your hand in it. And the mouth is cut open, and there's little cavities in there, put fingers in, so you can move.
Almost before your eyes, you can see the raw block of foam turn into a very lifelike face. Once the basic form of the puppet is complete, Marilyn begins work on the puppet's costumes.
Russell gives me a basic body to work with, a foam body, which I use then as a dressmaker form. And I make a pattern that fits. In fact, I just cut them out of newspaper, the patterns for that. Making puppet clothes is very, very simple compared to putting together a carefully articulated Vogue pattern.
One of the Puppet Connection's latest projects was the design and assembly of 8 American tourist puppets for the Detroit Repertory Theater's production of The Man Who Killed Buddha. This is when all the hard work pays off, when their puppets come to life.
How difficult is it to teach an actor to be a puppeteer?
Well, if he's an actor, he's used to using his total body to express himself. Whereas for a puppeteer, basically, one usually is involved with what happens from your elbow to the tips of your fingers and how you articulate that. What your voice does is also very important.
How hard is it to do voices? Give me some examples.
Well, I'll go to Hot Fudge because those are voices that come easily to me. Mona's voice is quite high.
Just kind of way up here. Actually, it's not that high. But this is where my voice is up here.
Glenn Denver's voice is very much in the same tone that mine is, but I gave him an accent as if he comes from Paris, Tennessee.
And the other problem that I have is that I talk through my nose, and so that's the way, you see, well, anyway, that's what it is.
It really takes a lot of concentration, and the thing is that the younger you are, the less you've used your voice, obviously. So kids can start early and learn to sing or learn to talk in different ways. It's just a matter of starting something and staying with it.
You know, Marilyn, I hear that they can make those puppets look like anybody.
Oh, I doubt that.
No, really. I read somewhere the puppets have become so popular that some people prefer their company to other humans.
Oh, you've got to be kidding.
No, I'm not. I've even heard that puppets have been slowly replacing humans on the job.
Could you imagine that someday we might be replaced by puppets?
No, they could never replace us, honey. We're unique.
I guess you're right.
Yeah.
One year, I did the auto show circuit with one of Bob Elnicky's automaton puppets. I sat way up in a tower, looking down on the turntable where the car was going around. In front of that, there was this sexy little puppet named Starla. And all I had to do was sit up there in the booth, talk for Starla, move some levers so that she would turn and move and what have you. It was done so well that nobody connected the gray-haired puppeteer with a sexy little Starla.
Hi, nice to see you. Don't you just love this car?
I wrote an article for the Puppetry Journal for that one. And yeah, I was gray-haired indeed, and that entitled me to do Mother Goose, which is what I did after that. Russ Gordonier built me a nice big gander, and I would do walkabouts with this gander puppet. Also, I built some puppets, some little rod puppets using leg eggs. Here's Little Boy Blue asleep in the hay, the little guy. And then, let's see. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Old King Cole, the merry old soul was he. Called for his pipe. Where's my pipe? Called for, doesn't have an English accent, sorry. Called for his bowl. Nope. Where's my bowl? Where's my fiddlers three? Where are you guys? This is I'll show you my favorite one. My favorite one. Sing a song, sixpence, pocket full of rye, 4 and 20 blackbirds baked in a pie. When the pie was opened, the birds began to sing. Wasn't that a dainty dish to set before the king? I can't tell you how many times somebody said to me, "Are you selling those puppets?" No, the answer was always no. So, have you seen a little gal pass by here with a wig and a wag and a zig and a zag? Oh, my long leather bag and all my gold and silver, have you seen her? In 1992, I began putting together the Great Lakes Regional Puppetry Festival as its director. So 2 years in and around doing this, I was performing, putting this together. Anyway, in 1994, the Detroit Puppeteers Guild pulled it all together, and we brought in Johnny's friend Albert Roser from Germany, and actually made some good money for the region that year as well. So after that, well, after you do a project like that, you got to do something else. You've got to do something new. My father was dying, and we had decided to move to Connecticut to take care of my mother as soon as John could retire. So once again, Russ created another character for me, a signature character this time, Baby Piccolo. I knew that there were a lot of Italian Americans living in Connecticut, and so I was determined to this time honor my maternal grandmother, who came to this country at the turn of the last century and refused to speak a word of English. She spoke nothing but Italian. And so does Piccolo. So, have you seen a little gal pass by here? Wig and wag, long leather bag, all my gold and silver. Have you seen her? In 1996, we moved to Connecticut, lock, stock, and puppets. We moved in with my mom while our house was being built on land where I had played as a child. It was designed by an architect friend, Harvey Ferrero, and it was built by my cousin, Tom Olson. What a great house. It's become a gathering place, not only for family and friends, but for students of Italian, for choir members, for storytellers, for puppeteer. One time we had a guild meeting in our basement, and our 29-foot dragon puppet, Violet, was assembled in our basement and painted there, hanging alongside rows and rows of marionettes. That was very cool. John and I were very much involved with the Connecticut Guild of Puppetry. We were on the board, and we did some pretty nice exhibits for the Day of Puppetry, too. I was president for 3 years. After my mother died, Johnny joined me in a special show that featured Italian stories with Baby Piccolo and a demo that he did with the puppets from his collection from Sicily and Italy. It was really, really a good show, and it was well received. But John Miller was not a well man. John Miller had had a quadruple bypass and a valve replacement while he was still teaching in Michigan. And so thereafter, he was in congestive heart failure. So in 2006, he died. And there was nothing for me to do except pick up the pieces and go on. So I did. So for the next 4 years, I donated his puppet collection primarily to the Ballard Institute and Museum of Puppetry. And also, I donated some things and sold them some things to Alan Cook for his International Museum of Puppetry, which is now in Seattle, Washington. John's extensive library of puppetry books went to Temple University for their new puppetry curriculum. I continued doing live shows in schools and libraries, and I performed and did workshops and storytelling festivals quite often. I had been the MC with Tiffany in 2000 in Toledo at the National Puppeteers of America Festival. And I performed in New York City in the famous Provincetown Playhouse. That was really fun with Piccolo. But you know, things were different in Connecticut. They were just different. They were changing. They were doing a lot of testing in the schools, and the curriculum was changing. And they didn't hire people to come into the schools unless you plugged into their curriculum. I just had charming shows, and there were only a couple of things that plugged in, as I say. So the jobs for performers were becoming fewer and fewer. Also, I looked around me and I could see that there were other puppeteers trying to make a living, you know? And I didn't really need the money, I just loved the work. But also, this was a time for me when I had 4 joints replaced. I had both hips and both shoulder joints replaced. You do this on and off, and things dwindle. So that's what happened. A few venues would keep booking me, but, you know, we got fewer and fewer, far between. But I've kept involved with the Connecticut Guild of Puppetry. I host board meetings here at my house, and there are a lot of things that I get involved with. For instance, here's a Piccolo half chair that my daughter painted for the project that we called Take a Seat. Now, here's also a picture of me as Josie, clutching my teddy bear at our masquerade to honor Larry Hunt. This was a character that I developed while doing theater shows with Pat Judd. Both the mask and the puppet were made by Russ Gordonier. I kept working with Piccolo. I kept studying Italian and traveling to Italy and fleshing out that character of that puppet because he was really important to me. And one day, a woman called to book me and she said, "I don't care what you do, just bring that baby." Okay. Another one of my favorite quotes was from a 4-year-old in Boston who said,
"You know, that puppet was magic. He was real, even though we knew he wasn't."
That's what it's all about, isn't it? So, have you seen a little gal pass by here with a wig and a wag and a jig and a jag and a zig and a zag and my long leather bag and all my gold and silver? Have you seen her? So, to finish off, here's the PSA that we created for the East Hartford Public Library in the first few months of COVID-19. I have to thank Robin McCahill and Rolande Duprey for helping me do that. And also, I have to give a special thanks to Chris Grande, who digitized all of those Michigan videotapes and scanned all those photographs for me and also helped me put this thing together. And I have to thank Adelka Polak, who is recording me even as I speak. Thanks, Adelka. And especially the Connecticut Guild of Puppetry for giving me the chance to tell my story, my circuitous path in puppetry. So here we go with A Mask for Piccolo, Una Mascherina per Piccolo. Thank you for watching. My name is Marilyn O'Connor Miller. I'm a storyteller, and a puppeteer. And I have with me today a very special puppet. His name is Piccolo.
Ciao!
Piccolo only speaks Italian.
Sì, io sono italiano 100%.
He says he's Italian 100%.
Nonna,
Hmm?
cos'è quella?
Oh, questa è una mascherina, a little mask. My friend Robin McCahill made this mask for me. See, Robin ha fatto questa mascherina per me.
Ma perché?
Why? Per tenerti al sicuro, to keep you safe.
Al sicuro da che?
From what? Dai germi, from germs.
Oh. Che cosa sono i germi?
I germi fanno star male. Germs make people sick.
Non voglio ammalarmi.
No, neanche io. I don't want to be sick either. E perché porto questa mascherina? That's why I'm wearing this mask.
Ma nonna, perché io non ho una mascherina?
You?
Sì.
Vorresti una mascherina?
Ma certo.
Perché?
Per tenerti al sicuro.
Oh, you want a mask to keep me safe?
Sì, certo.
Tu sei fortunato.
Perché?
Because you're very fortunate. Robin has made a mask for you too. Una mascherina per te.
Per me?
Sì. Robin, do you have Piccolo's mask?
Yes, I do.
Do you like it?
È un leone, come il mio burattino. Mi piace.
Vuoi portarla? You want to wear it?
Oh, certo.
Okay, let me help
Robin's
you.
putting it on. Oh, quindi va
Yours
qui.
has a mane. Let's take some of your ears.
Oh, mi piace, grazie molto.
Oh, you're welcome.
Un leone e 2 leoni e 3 leoni. Nonna, perché, per favore, fa una mascherina per il burattino.
Oh, sure. Now he wants a mask for the puppet.
E perché no?
Dici ciao.
Ciao tutti! Ciao tutti! Ciao!